Hi there, I'm Robert Hammond. I'm doing a series of videos on Julian Huxley, and this is the third part. Basically, I'm looking at the book Essays in Popular Science and basically explaining Julian Huxley's intentions. He was a eugenicist as well as a biologist. And basically I'm talking about, in case you haven't seen the other previous videos, his intentions are to create a scientific dictatorship through biological manipulation on the masses. And also I brought in his brother Aldous Huxley's work, A Brave New World. If you haven't read these, you should read them. Ideally, if you watch the other videos, you'll see where I am and how we're up to date. But basically, I'm trying to take you through the book and trying to show you basically how this is, really being applied now. And it was written in 1929. So he's serious about this. So let's carry off from where we were, if we can. Here we have a chapter, The Determination of Sex, and I've just outlined the bits I think are relevant, because if I read the whole book to you, it'd take forever. So, and I have to do this in little segments because I've only got so much memory on the camera, so I can make short videos, so about 10 minutes long. So I'm going to break it down like that. It's the best I can do. And sorry if this is a bit sketchy and my reading is not too good. So bear with me. But here we are. Determination of sex. It talks about some plants which only reproduce asexually. So you don't need two partners. Some kinds of banana, for instance, never set seed. It is therefore clear that sex is not necessarily an accompaniment for life. You don't necessarily need sexual reproduction to reproduce. I think that's what he's saying there, yeah. Which is interesting, as you will see as we go along. And here he's talking about, in this section, why do more baby boys die than girls? In the little section here, he's basically talking about eugenics in the form of not, why let the weaker and the less fortunate live? Birth control basically, weeding out undesirables. Here it says, due also to the pressure of such unfavourable hereditary factors in other chromosomes besides the sex chromosomes, and if so, will not the reduction of this particular section of infant mortality not merely be a task of extreme difficulty, but may it not be in some ways undesirable to reduce it? So he's saying, is it a good thing to basically, reduce infant mortality? Basically, maybe it's best to let nature take its place. We should be simply saddling the weak constitutions, the individuals whose lives were preserved, and the community with a greater proportion of unfavourable factors and unfit members. It is a point which deserves the best consideration of public health authorities. Alright, so we've gone from bananas, bacteria, to human beings and the public health authorities. It's quite startling, I think, how we kind of switches, back and forth to human beings, and then bacteria and other simple celled organisms and things like that. So let's read on. The chapter here, the dominant sex. This gets interesting. Right. Here he reads, is there today a difference between women and men as finished products, and if so, how great is this difference? Secondly, granted this difference, how much of it is due to inborn differences between the sexes, and how much to the different social and domestic functions of the two sexes, how much to the influence of tradition and education, and finally, to what extent is it possible to increase or decrease the hereditary, the social, and the traditional difference. The question is thus partly biological, partly historical, and anthropological, sociological, if you will. So he's saying, is there really a difference between the sexes, or, is it biological, or is it, our upbringing, the way we're raised, possibly, I think that's what he's getting at. And here it reads, they document their thesis from history. They document their thesis from history, and he's talking about other authors here that I don't have time to mention, from history and anthropology. According to them, there have been, in the most various races and stages of culture, communities in which women have been regarded as the dominant sex in council and administration. Once this occurs, all the rest of the commonly received attributes of the two sexes are reversed. Men are regarded by nature as coy and fond of finery, women as strong and full of initiative, and the social customs and institutions fall into line with the reversed tradition. Women being the suitors, feminine nobles, and princes keeping male harems. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Boy babies being regarded as a misfortune, and so forth. Yep, and we read on here. So basically he's saying some cultures reverse, the gender roles, and if they do that, then why is it supposed to be a biological difference between, the dominant sex? Maybe a lot of people are raised to always believe that it's the males that are naturally assertive, because of their hormonal differences. But here he's challenging that, I think. And let's go on here. He says, but they hasten to add, out-and-out dominance of either sex is bad. Now that connects to something quite interesting, actually. I'm going to go into that in a minute. Here we are. Here he reads, poor social status, unequal rights in marriage and divorce, economic dependence or inferiority, and up to a certain point, prostitution. These and the other evils will be found burdening whatever sex is regarded as the inferior. We therefore need a new belief and tradition, one of sex equality, which will automatically bring about equality of social status and function between the sexes, and apparently it is to minimise the biological difference as well. Right, okay. Now, before I go on this, I've nothing against equal rights for women. I don't believe in violence towards women. I see in some cultures where women are just pushed down so badly to the point where I think it's unnatural, or maybe it is not unnatural, but basically what I'm saying is I'm not condoning violence towards women and in any way, but I think that I'm thinking of feminism and equal rights. When you look at that, many people may believe that it was put into place to really liberate women and give them freedom, genuinely, and there's many good things about it. But I think that, looking at this, the intentions are to, control society, and it is one of the plans, feminism. I'm thinking of Margaret Sanger. I believe I mentioned her. She was behind Planned Parenthood, and Huxley here, he was involved in Planned Parenthood as well. And feminism, she was a big feminist Margaret Sanger in America, and that's where all this, abortion came in, a real pro-abortion, power to women, to decide, whether their baby lives or dies and things like that. It was never intended as a real positive thing, a real, freedom for women. It was eugenics were involved. I mean, she was really preaching lots of abortions to the black women because they weren't considered good stock. Though America didn't want them, the powers behind them. The eugenics movements were into trying to cull them, basically. So feminism has a sinister side to that. And the blurring of the sexes. I mean, in A Brave New World, people don't reproduce naturally. They don't have sex to reproduce. They have it's basically reproduction without sex and sex without reproduction. So you can afford to blur the gender lines there, can't you? And another thing is, if they're saying there's no real differences, I want to go into the differences of the male, and the hormones, the testosterone that shapes their behaviour. I'm going to go into that in part 4, and they're just going to continue on because I'm sorry, these things have to be short because of my video memory. So I'll talk to you in a bit.